Hey everybody, I'm Logan. I've been living off the grid for the last 10 years in this little straw bale house, learning how to procure all of our basic necessities to live completely off the grid in style. And today I'm gonna show you how we get clean, pressurized drinking water inside of our home. So follow me. So we collect all of the rainwater that falls on this roof behind me into a rainwater collection system that's right back here. It consists of 3 IBC totes, intermediate bulk container totes. They're basically plastic totes with a metal grid on the outside. And they're stacked. The first 2 are stacked vertically, and then there's one right next to it. The one that sits alone by itself is the biological sand filter that filters all of the water that comes off of this roof before it goes into our house. So the top stack here consists of, the top part of the stack is a surge tank. So it holds 300 gallons in that IBC tote. And then as it fills up, it slowly feeds the biological sand filter tank to the right. The way that this biological sand filter works is a slow sand filter. So it only filters about 20 gallons. It filters about 4 gallons every 20 minutes. So it's not very fast at all. So what we have to do is make sure that, since we get a lot of heavy rainstorms that are producing a whole lot more than 20 gallons of rain or 4 gallons of rain every 20 minutes, then we have to be able to collect that rain and hold it while our filter filters it. So this top tank collects all of the water, and then it spills out into the biological sand filter, which slowly filters it. And as it does, it filters down to the bottom through layers of sand and gravel, which I'm going to show you in more detail in a minute. And then it spills out back from the top and into a clean water tank that we use to store our drinking water. The rest of the water, if we get a really heavy rainstorm that can filter, or that rains and produces more than 300 gallons, faster than this sand filter can filter it, it overflows out of that white pipe right there and down into a cistern that is conveniently stored underground in a concrete 10,000 gallon tank. Let's go check it out. This shed right here is concealing a 10,000 gallon cistern. Which is 2 parts. There's 2 5,000 gallon cisterns that are separated by a central baffle wall, so that if one side's dirty and needs to be cleaned, then we can empty it, wash it out, and still have 5,000 gallons stored in the other side. So right down here, you can see there's an empty tank. And actually, this is most of the time it's empty, because we only need, as a family of 4, we only need about 5,000 gallons of water to supply all of our needs for drinking, for bathing, showering, laundry, all that stuff. The coolest part about this system is that you would never know that it's here if I wasn't showing you, because what we've done is we've put a concrete floor over top of basically the same setup over here, this open 5,000 gallon tank. This one's the same thing, except it has a concrete floor over it with an access hatch. So we can get in there. Right now, you can see we've got, it's almost full, but it's probably about 300 gallons lower than where the upper limit would be. And then this piping that you're looking at right here is basically a sucker hose that pulls water off of the bottom of the tank. It's about 4 or 5 inches off of the bottom of the tank so it doesn't pull any debris that settles on the bottom of the tank up into the house plumbing. So we use a pump to pump this water into the house, into a pressure tank, so that when we turn on the faucet or turn on the shower, we have pressurized water. Now, aside from that pump, everything up to this point right here, before it gets in the cistern, is a gravity flow. So we could leave for 2 years or however long we wanted to leave and not have to worry about pumps breaking or batteries running out or any of that kind of potential problems. We're always going to have a full cistern full of rainwater when we get home. And the way that that works is we collect rainwater off of this roof right here. You can see the gutter on the entire length of the roof, and it drains to the downspout right here, and it goes through that black canister, which is a YZ Vortex filter. That thing is amazing. Let me talk about that for a second. So it's a vortex. So as you can see, water comes in from the side and it spins around the side walls. And if you've ever noticed, water has a cohesion type quality. So if you have a glass of water and you dump it out, it's going to stick to the side walls. And this does the same thing. It sends the water around the side walls. The filter is on the side. You'll see a screen on the side of this filter that won't let any large debris pass through it. And then all the other water and debris falls straight out the bottom. So unlike your typical first flush diverter, that if it gets clogged, you're going to get a whole bunch of dirty water in your tank. This is only letting filtered or screened water into this surge tank. So there's very minimal maintenance because of that. The biggest problem with rainwater collection systems and certainly filtration systems is clogging. And I go into this in a little bit more detail in another video. Check it out if you haven't already seen it. But it talks about how little maintenance there is in this system because of some of the things that I've incorporated into this system over time to make it very low maintenance. So rainwater goes into that vortex filter and it passes all the clean water through into the surge tank. The surge tank slowly feeds with a mechanical ball valve. It can sense the water level in that sand filter, so that when the sand filter has filtered down about 2 inches of water, then that mechanical ball float valve opens up more water and it fills up to a certain point and then it shuts off. And that way we don't have all of this surge water coming down and spilling into this tank and overflowing that sand filter tank. So all of this so far is gravity fed. We don't have to worry about pumps anywhere. It's just a mechanical float valve and screens. And after it goes through this sand filter, it's just gravity feeding by barometric pressure back up through a pipe that pulls clean water off the bottom, and it spills over into the clean water, into this clean water tank over here. And what that does is it keeps that biological film that forms on top of that sand filter alive. It needs to stay submerged in water. If it dries out, it dies. A lot of people have asked me, how do you create this biological film that breaks down all of the contaminants in water? And it's really simple. You can imagine that all natural systems, all biological systems naturally find balance. So contaminants in water are pathogenic bacteria, usually in virus particles, that come off of your roof, usually in bird poop and other leafy debris that might fall on your roof. they are, living, they're parasitic bacteria that are living in a bird's gut and making the bird sick. When the bird poops that out, it has a chance to wash off the roof and get in your rainwater collection system and also make you sick, as it's parasitic. It's going to live inside and off of your body. But what happens is, where there is that parasitic bacteria, there is also good bacteria that eats that parasitic bacteria. They're naturally going to find balance. And so this sand filter, if you leave it alone for 2 to 3 weeks, it's going to naturally inoculate itself with the good beneficial bacteria that are going to break down that parasitic bacteria. And like all parasites, they need a host. They can't live outside of a host for very long at all. Otherwise, they have nothing to eat. They don't go around and scavenge food and eat it. They latch onto human or other animal tissue and absorb the nutrients straight out of that animal. So if there's no, the beneficial bacteria live in conjunction with them, they inoculate this sand bed and form a film called a schmutz deck. That's literally a layer of filth that forms on top of this sand filter and breaks down 99.7% of harmful pathogenic bacteria and also virus particles. So this sand filter is a super low maintenance, super primitive, basic way to filter rainwater to a very, very high level of purity. Without a whole bunch of particulate filters or UV filters that use a lot of energy, or anything like that that's going to cost you money and take a lot of time to maintain. This is a gravity-fed system that overflows, like I said, into this cistern that's conveniently housed underneath this metal shed. So, a lot of people ask how we get water from this cistern back here into the house. Like I said, we could walk away, and with zero maintenance, with zero input, with zero pumps or energy, we're going to collect all of the rainwater, most of the rainwater that falls on the roof, and it's going to just fill this cistern and fill our clean water tank that we use for drinking water. There's 300 gallons of drinking water that we are always going to have access to, no matter what happens. So everything that goes into the cistern is fed by gravity, and then in order to get it to the house, we use a jet pump, and that we store inside this shed, which is locked. Let me see if I can unlock this real fast and show you how basic this system is. So most of the equipment in this shed is also stuff that you would find in a normal house. So in this shed here, we have a pressure tank. So most homes that are on that are not on municipal water supply are going to have a pressure tank, and that is to, your pump. More than likely, if you live in a rural area and you're collecting all of your rainwater, or you're collecting, and more than likely, if you live in a rural area and you have water that's not provided by the city, you're getting it from a well or some community supply, and you're basically pulling that into a pressure tank, so that as this tank fills up, there's a bladder inside that has a whole lot of force behind it. There's air inside this tank as well, and a bladder that's filled with water. So, or actually the bladder is filled with air and the rest of the water is inside this tank. And as you fill up this tank, that bladder has a lot of air and it puts pressure on that water. And then, when you turn on a faucet inside your house, it's pulling from this tank, this system basically. And so it's going to be pressurized water. And all we need is this little Dankoff Solar jet pump right here. This is like a $400 pump. It's not very expensive. We haven't had to do any maintenance to it in 8 years. And it has a little filter. And this, although the water that's coming out of that cistern is very clean, this is required just to keep the warranty on this pump. Because if this pump gets any particulate matter in it, it can damage the rotor in there. But basically, we just have a 15 amp circuit running this pump, which pumps water from the cistern into this pressure tank, so that every time we turn any fixture on in the house, we have pressurized water. That is about it. It really is as simple as that. That is all of the components in the system, and it works like a dream. So I wanted to show you that, and show you primarily how easy it can be to get clean water in an off-grid system without a whole lot of pumps, without a whole lot of expensive filtration systems. I mean, we're talking about sand. The sand filter that filters all the water in the house is 0.2 to 0.3 millimeter sand. It's a very highly uniform sand that comes from red flint sand somewhere in the Midwest. And you can get that. It's pretty expensive, but let me tell you, this whole system, you know, the filtration system cost about $3,000 to $4,000. The cistern itself cost about $7,000. So for less than 12 grand, you can have a clean drinking water quality system that's gravity fed, that requires like almost zero maintenance forever. I'm talking, this system could potentially last 1,000 years, as long as those plastic tanks that are housed in an aluminum jacket don't degrade or get algae in them. So it is, again, this is my pride and joy. This is like a prepper's glory right here, the system. We don't have, I mean, water is one of the most important things that you need to procure to provide for your own basic necessities. And we've got it right here. And it's easy. If you have a roof over your head, you have a way to collect water. And so just do it. It's really not that difficult. We've got plans available that show you exactly how we built this whole system, available online for, I think, $45 are really cheap, and it'll save you the hassle of trying to figure out how to put all of this together by yourself. This took me years of figuring and trial and error to get this just dialed into where it is right now. So feel free to check that out. Thank you so much for all your support. If you do decide to go online and buy those plans, it's really helping me to kind of continue to do the things that we do, because we really don't make much money off of YouTube. I'm just trying to use my spare time to help put the information out there, because I spent years trying to figure this stuff out, and I feel like a lot of people would love to be able to do this for themselves. They just may not have all the time and money to go through all the processes that I've done, all the years of learning and figuring to get to the same result. I mean, this is something that you can easily replicate on your own anywhere in the world. These materials, these IBC totes, are readily available around the world. They're intermediate bulk containers. They store just about any kind of liquid that you can imagine. We try to find and source ones that have already been used for, I think these tanks had olive oil in them. So, you know, if you can find something that's food grade, then all the better. You just pressure wash them to clean them out with a mild detergent, and you're good to go. Certainly you would want to avoid IBC totes that might have glue or something crazy in them that you don't want to be drinking after, because it can be really difficult to clean. Also, I wanted to say that the aluminum jacket that I put over top of this whole system that conceals the IBC totes is a pretty critical component in this system. What that does is it shields the rainwater collection and filtration tanks, those plastic tanks, from getting UV sunlight damage that would break them down over time, and also create an environment where algae would grow and clog up your tanks. Algae is one of those things that is super nasty to deal with, and it clogs up your system really fast. So you want to keep as much sunlight out of your collection system as you possibly can, and that's what this aluminum jacket does. It protects the tanks from UV damage and also from getting algae in them. And beyond that too, I've made it with aluminum C-channel, so it fits a 2-inch rigid foam insulation inside to kind of protect it from super freezing temperatures. So we've never had this system freeze. Granted, we are in North Carolina, so I mean, we're talking about, we get into the single digits like a couple times a year, maybe. Most of the time, the coldest it gets is in the teens. So if you're in a place like Alaska or the northern Midwest, you might need to think about how to keep that sand bed, that water from freezing, and having the tank ice over. You might want to actually figure out a way to incorporate this system inside an insulated or heated pump shed. That's probably what I would do, honestly, is I would put this inside this building and figure out a way to open up some air from inside the house to the system so that it didn't freeze. But really, it's as easy as that. So a little of thoughtful design can go a long way. And that's that. So I certainly hope you found this video helpful. If so, feel free to smash that like button, and please consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. We love your support, and reach out if you got any comments below. As always, y'all, thanks for watching. Till the next one, peace out.